You're watching the classroom chat on Study with Sudhir. My name is TS Sudhir. Now, students who are to appear in the second edition of JEE Mains as well as NEET in the second half of July have been demanding a postponement, citing among other reasons the lockdown in several states, hampering movement, the threat of COVID-19 infections, and a spike in the number of infected persons. Now, the decision on what to do in the present circumstances has to be taken by the National Testing Agency, the NTA, as well as the HRD Ministry, which is the parent ministry. With me to discuss this is Peri Maheshwer, one of India's finest minds and someone who tracks the education space in great detail. Maheshwer is the chairman and CEO at Careers 360, which is a platform to help students make informed career choices. Mahesh, thank you very much for sparing the time and talking to us.
My pleasure.
I want to ask you, Mahesh, for both NEET and JEE Mains, which are big ticket examinations in terms of numbers, how do you view this demand by several students that the exams should not be held in July 2020?
See, you need to bring it down to the minimum damage that it can cause, Sudhir. Are we saying that the entire engineering and medical sciences would be completely postponed? I think that is quite unfair, because if you look at the JEE, let's look at JEE for a moment, right? There was that happened in January. There was a result that was declared, and about 9 lakh students appeared. So they actually have a percentile sitting with them. Maybe we can always argue that some of them did not take it seriously, but that's an argument. We'll keep it aside for a moment. 4 years back, 5 years back, the 12th class score used to have a weightage in the JEE rank.
That's right.
And that was through the normalization process, yes. Right? So we as a country, because these are extreme times, so there is no solution that's a perfect solution for which satisfies everyone, right? So there is one solution which says that you actually class score and generate a rank out of that. There is another one which says that you actually have a JEE Jan score which can be converted to a rank. The third option is that a set of students who are unhappy with both either the 12th class score or the JEE January batch appear for the examination, right? Now, what we need to understand is, if we keep pushing this examination, there is a possibility that we lose a semester. And for what? You look at the JEE takers and see who is it relevant for, or how many students is it relevant for. It is relevant for about 10-12,000 students seats of JEE, and then it's relevant for another 20,000 students for NITs rather, right? So in all, what we're dealing with is about 30,000 seats being up there for the grabs, for which JEE is the primary examination.
That's right.
And then you also have JEE Advanced, by the way, for IITs, right? We can always ensure that we bring it down to only IITs and say the others can go on, so that they don't lose a semester. Because somewhere along the line, the entire STEM courses have tagged themselves along with the JEE examination, right? Which means that every college, every university, every state board and every state technical board and everyone has aligned themselves to the JEE. If I were to be the regulator or decision maker in this, I'll step back and say, let the states do their own admission in all their colleges and let the classes start. Then I will say that every private university can do their own examination, either through a 12th class score or their own examination if they have it, and choose the best of the two or one of the two and start the classes. Then we have NITs, right? That NITs, they can still wait, because even assuming it happens in the month of August, NITs typically start on the 15th of August. So you still have time to start off immediately and go on with it, which brings it down to 10,000 students which will appear for IITs, right? JEE Advanced. Those 10,000 students, if and when they get that thing, they can always withdraw from the existing colleges and go there, which anyways happens, mind you.
Yes.
Right. But from that perspective, I would still go ahead with the JEE Mains as early as possible, so that the semester of the entire student community is not held to ransom by 25-30,000 students who would want to be a part of this system, which I'm still saying they can still be choosing to be part of the system either now or later, as and when the examination is held. But first of all, we must declutter this STEM space where everyone, every college, every university is waiting for the JEE to happen and it's not happening. That, I think, is very, very unfair to the entire student community.
But what would you
And you're dealing with about 2 million plus.
Yes. But what would you say to all the students and their parents? The Parents Association has also written to both the HRD and the health ministries that there is concern that is this really the ideal situation to conduct these kind of entrance examinations, because you are allowing extraneous factors to affect the mind of the student instead of allowing the student to focus only on what he or she needs to do.
Which is always the case, Sudhir. You go through the history of the examinations, there would be multiple occasions in different states, not at a all India, pan India level, but at different states where there was uncertainty because of issues that came up in those states or in those cities or in those villages. So not no examination is fair to every person at every point in time. I remember when I took the CA examination in 91, there was the Ayodhya, Babri Masjid demolition happened. There were riots there and all. And the CA Institute gave us an option to choose an examination date. So they gave two options: either you can appear now, or we give you another one much later, right? I chose to take the examination immediately because the thing for a student is he's preparing himself to appear for an examination. The more you postpone it, the fire in the belly goes. He's completely lost, and so on and so forth. The students who really prepped up for the examination, they would prefer this examination not to be delayed. Of course, if there is some containment zone and those kind of things, that will remain a question mark for him all the while, mind you. Right? So for me, I took the examination. I was happy I took the examination. Even now, as you say, there are a lot of parents and students have written for it. But I'm sure there are a lot of students and parents who want the examination to happen. It is just that they are not active participants in the debate at this point in time. It doesn't for a moment, and you take the CA examination itself. Right now, in the current context, there is a CA examination, which is where Supreme Court is hearing the case exactly for the postponement of the examination. 1.5 lakh students opted to take the examination, and 50,000 students opted to take it later.
Okay.
Right. That is when an express option was given to the students saying, would you want to take it now or later? Now, the 50,000 students are the ones who are fighting the case, in which case, right, in a certain sense. Now, as dynamically, because the COVID situation keeps improving, the 50,000 might become 80,000 now if the students were to be asked to take an option. But I'm saying for every student who wants a postponement, there is possibly another student who wants the examination to happen.
Right.
And that student should not be suffering because another student doesn't want to appear. Having said that, as a country, as an examination body, we must be fair to everyone. If you look at again the JEE and the IITians, Sudhir, there are a lot of students who drop out, take a drop year and repeat the examination. There are a lot of students who IIT after passing out of class 12, so they take a drop year and all. So there are multiple options that students choose. In this particular year, I think that might be an option for some of the students who don't want to take or cannot take or would not want to take. And that is after two options are there, which is the class 12 examination score, which hopefully can be considered, and the JEE, where 9 lakh students of the 12 lakh students have already taken one test. My worry is not JEE, Sudhir. My worry is NEET. Because how would the medical examination happen? NEET is a totally different problem. Yeah, please.
No, that's what I was going to come to, in the sense that when the NTA meets most likely on the 3rd of July, would it take a different view on JEE mains and NEET, given the fact that the JEE mains is at least spread out examination, whereas NEET is a single day examination on the 26th of July. So would the NTA take a slightly different view on both these entrance exams?
I am completely rather, I believe that the only practical solution is to delink the two examinations. There is no way under the sun that you can have 1.5 million students taking an examination with the social distancing norms in classrooms in pen and paper mode. Right. Which means you are essentially have to create about 5 million seats to have 1.5 million students taking the examination, right? For me, it is almost an impractical solution at this point in time. Whereas JEE, each session is having 200,000 students sitting for the examination, not even 200,000, because you're dealing with 8 sessions and 1.2 million students, right? And so I would separate the two. NEET is a totally different animal altogether. JEE is much more easily doable. 1, because there is already a score. 2, it's online. 3, it is in 8 sessions. So I would, separate the two, and NEET can happen. And by the way, Council of India and MCI is also fighting the biggest battle that it ever fought in human history, if I were to say so, right? So I think NEET has to be slightly separated out as compared to what we're dealing with for JEE.
Right. Now, the institutes who I spoke to, many of them being examination centers, they say that the preparatory work is going on, and that is causing a lot of concern to the students because, one, there is no communication so far from either the HRD Ministry or the NTA in this case, and the preparatory work is going on. They could get the admit cards in a couple of days. So do you see also the decision makers not really being very good in terms of communicating and telling the students what they're thinking right now?
The problem, Sudhir, is I actually empathize with them. If I were to be sitting there, what is the decision I will take? These are dynamic situations where everything changes every single day, right? Uh, Certain examinations were cancelled because the state said that we can't carry on with them, right? Which is a CBI examination where Maharashtra objected and a couple of states joined that thing, right? Not all states objected.
Yeah.
If you think through the whole thing, right? So NTA doesn't have a message to communicate. So what will they communicate?
No, in the
It's
sense
largely
that,
dependent on what MCR does, right?
no, in the sense that many examinations, like in the case of the Telangana MSET, the Telangana Class 10 board examinations, many of those decisions happened right at the last minute, one day before the examinations. If you asked before the examinations, they were cancelled. So in a sense, that only adds to the whole anxiety factor of the student community.
I would, separate again the state examinations with the national examinations. So there, at a state level, they could have been easier, faster decision making because you know where the state is and you can decide for them. The problem is when you deal with an all India thing where you are dealing 36 union territories plus states. How do you deal with that situation, right? Which is where it's a larger problem because a lot of states would want to conduct or they won't object, and a few states would say they don't want to conduct the examination. Let us look at Kerala, for example. Kerala conducted all its school examinations amidst COVID. Madhya Pradesh right now is conducting the examination while COVID is happening, and we're talking of school examinations, by the way. Right. So if school students are able to take an examination, now a few states also cancel the examinations because they think that it is unmanageable. So at a local level, at a state level, it's much more easily manageable in terms of decision making.
Right.
Because they know where the state is. Yeah.
But for instance, the IIT final examinations at different NITs, they could not be conducted. So the argument would be when IITs and NITs are not able to conduct their own examinations, would it be feasible to conduct this JEE mains entrance examinations?
Totally different things, Sudhir, because that is in the campus and the campuses are closed. Right. Both the IIT and NITs, you need to go to the campus to take the examination to begin with, and the campuses are closed. And there is a standing order that till 31st of July, the campuses would remain shut, and to that extent, nothing can happen. Right. So till the campus opens, no examination can happen in any college, any school, any university. Right. But the state examinations are totally different. So we need to separate the two things again.
Finally, Mahesh, is there a case also for, you did allude to it in the beginning, that if we go with the JEE main score of January and do away with this July edition completely, would that be fair to the students?
No, so I will give the option. My suggestion is that you must go through the examination. People who are unhappy with the Jan score would appear for the July score because they pushed to it. Some of them may still not be able to appear. That's a possibility. But there is an option there, right? So of the January students who appeared for January, a lot of them would say, okay, I don't need to appear because this is where I stand and I can improve, or I cannot improve, and you let it be there, right? Then you come to the July batch of those students who think that they've, the Jan examination is very unfair to them. They deserve far better, and they'll push themselves to appear for the July examination, right? Even within that, some of them might not be able to appear because they're in different red zones or orange zones. Now that your heart goes out to them. But for that said, would you derail the entire system? Which is a question that we have to answer as a country. And I would say that, 5% students should not cost the 95% students in terms of a semester being lost.
Okay. If you were to look at a date, for instance, the UPSC prelims exams, they have scheduled it for 4th of October. Would it be fair to say that October is when things would probably get a little better? And would the NTA be in a position to kind of announce some kind of a date should they decide to postpone these examinations of July?
I don't think they will announce a date this time, assuming they do that. And assuming that announce a date also, they'll take at least a month plus kind of a gap from the date that we're currently dealing with. I've heard things which are talking of first week of September, by the way. But these are all hearsay. By tomorrow, day after, you'll get to know the thing also. I don't think any one of us is able to is in a position to say things will be normal in this month, and that is the problem with what one is facing. So I would not announce the date assuming this happens. We have to bide the time.
Right. Peri Maheshwer, thank you very much for giving us this perspective. Many students may not find it very palatable because that whole trend hashtag of postpone the NEET and the JEE examinations is going on, at least in the world of social media, which you are very familiar with also. but definitely a perspective worth listening to and
Yeah, but
understanding.
my only suggestion to the student also is that, for you need to decide whether you want to lose out a semester. Typically a semester, the first semester is done by the end of November, beginning of December, and the second semester starts. If you
Yes.
push this whole thing, then you are actually likely to lose one semester, and to that extent you will side by 6 more months. Would it be worth for a nation to have all the 2.5 million STEM course students postpone it because you can't conduct an examination, or would we want to do it for only 10,000 students? That's what we need to bring it down to, the most minimum damage that we can tolerate, and then go ahead with that decision.
Right. You're looking at it very mathematically and breaking it down. Peri Maheshwer,
Yeah.
thank you very much for your perspective. These are difficult times, these are challenging times, but probably we need to also think out of the box in order to deal with the situation. Thank you very much for your time, Peri Maheshwer.
Thanks so much, Sudhir. Bye.
Thanks, Mahesh. Thank you.